It gives the Cheltenham Society great pleasure this evening to welcome back former Head of Drama and Honorary OC Chris Haslam and also OC Tom Scudamore. Tonight Chris is going to talk to Tom about his life at college and his career becoming a professional jockey. Thank you both so much for coming back to college, and we look forward to listening to this interview.
Well, Tom, welcome back. It's very good to see you here, to see you in these hallowed portals where I know you spent many hours studying. So I'm going to ask a little bit about before you came to college and then your time here and obviously what's happened since. We're very grateful to you for coming because you've been riding at Southwell, you're going home to Devon, and tomorrow you're riding at Wetherby. So, first question, were you always going to be a jockey?
Yes, well, I always dreamed of being a jockey, and fortunately I didn't grow very much, so that sort of helped towards that. But yeah, it was always my first choice in everything that I wanted to do. I was very fortunate to be brought up in and around horses. Obviously, my grandfather won the Grand National in 1959. My father was champion jockey, so it wasn't. I was never forced into carrying on in the family footsteps, as it were. But I was always very, very keen to do so, provided that I was good enough and that I was able to try and make a living out of it. So
it was a vocation, really.
Yes, I think a lot of being involved in a sport like racing is a vocation, and whether you're a jockey or, in my brother's case, a trainer, there are so many avenues to explore within the world of racing that once you get involved in the business, as it were, it's very hard to get out of it. So yes, I was always, whether it was as a jockey or as a trainer or as a bloodstock agent or something like that, I'd have wanted to be involved in the industry.
Good. And the fact that your grandfather, who I know you were very close to, and your father, champion jockey 9 times, I think. So rather than it being a pressure, that was an encouragement.
Yes, very much so. We were always brought up, I'd like to think, with to try and keep very level-headed, and for all the success that both my grandfather and father had, I can also, although I can't remember, my grandfather had to finish his riding career through a very bad injury. I remember not being picked up at school one day when I was at the junior school because my father had broken his leg badly up at Market Raisin, and they'd forgotten to pick me up. So you for all the glory and all the glamour, you were very aware of the other side of the sport as well, and the dedication and hard work it took. So I was never under any illusions that just because my grandfather had been so successful and then my father again, that it would all be plain sailing, because it's you unfortunately can't speak to horses, and there's no way of no guarantee of getting them to run for you.
No, right. So as a young lad, even before you came here, you'd be going to the racecourse and watching your father.
Yeah, I'd be, any spare time I had, I'd be going with Dad, and it was my passion all the way through. From a very early age, I was a little walking encyclopedia of racing, going to all the courses with Dad, and it was a wonderful time.
Good. And college have had quite a few racing folk now. Do you know why you came here as a young lad? Why that your parents chose Turner College?
Well, actually, again, that's because of one of Dad's injuries. So Dad had broken his wrist very badly, and he was being operated on by a Mr. Ainscoe, whose son was in the year above me at college, Donald. And I looked out of Dad's hospital window and said, that's an incredible building just across there. And Mum said, that's a school. I said, I wouldn't mind going there. So I was enrolled at the junior school, and the rest from there. I think originally I was meant to be sent to Belmont Abbey in Hereford, because that's where Dad went. But A, it closed down, and B, it wasn't good enough anyway. So.
Right.
So I came here, and we came to the junior school, and one day walking across to have a look at the senior school, I believe our decision was made very, very clear.
Yes, very clearly indeed. Bless you. Yes, that's because I literally bumped into Tom.
That was the first time we ever met, wasn't it?
Yes, that's right.
I remember very distinctly walking across, literally by the traffic lights.
That's right.
You came over and introduced yourself.
Yeah.
And Mum and Dad had met Martin Stovvold through his brother Andy. So we had little ties there. But when you mentioned that you came over and introduced yourself, that was it left its mark. Chris.
Yeah, well, that was to college's gain, I think. So, what about your memories of being here? Are they quite strong?
Yeah, they're very strong. At the junior school was different. Both myself and my brother went there. I think I went there from the second year, and I didn't appreciate the junior school as much as I should have done. But as soon as I came across the road, I have to say I loved my time at college. I was not a particularly academic person, but the effort that people made with me and for me, I'm extremely grateful for. And it was, it was a fabulous place. And I'd like to think that whatever I had inside me academically was brought out, and I was able to achieve all the things that I had to achieve in order to appease my mother that I could become a jockey. So it suited everybody, but no, there were some, not just yourself included. There were the right people at the right time for me, and I'm extremely grateful for that.
Great, yeah. I think it was our game really, because there were quite a few people who came at the same time as you, and we actually formed a Sport of Kings society. And in fact, Peter was our first speaker. So having now heard recently that the old Stoics have formed a similar society, I've just been wondering whether perhaps the old Cheltenhamians might do such a similar thing. But yes, now I was reading the other day in a jockey's poll that they were questioned who was the most intelligent jockey in the weighing room, and the answer came out Tom Scudamore, because he went to school, which I thought was rather good. But you did stay on for A-levels, and not every jockey does that, do they?
No, they don't. And actually, I looked into to leaving at 16. Fortunately, yourself, Martin Stovold, and Ian Wright as well, all had a word in my ear, and things were made possible that I was able to stay. And so I did when I did my A-levels. Again, this is how grateful I am that my years. Lessons were all tailored to fit in around my racing, so that on a Monday morning, on a Thursday morning, I could go off and school horses and ride horses, and then come back in the afternoon and work. So it was, again, the effort that was made by people, I'm so grateful for, and hopefully I've been able to repay everybody's trust a little bit by
certainly
doing okay.
Yeah. But it was also very good for us to be able to have something different and to present to the headmaster, who wasn't a racing man. I seem to remember the idea that Tom would be schooling in the morning in that sense and schooling in the afternoon in our sense was worked very well. So let's move on to that famous day when you had a Friday afternoon, you had your first winner at Cheltenham.
Yeah, that was quite a day. So that would have been the November meeting at Cheltenham. I had lessons in the morning, so it was the Friday. I left school about 11 o'clock, went and rode a winner at Cheltenham, came back, and then I don't know if it's still the same case now. So Friday afternoons, you between 1 and 3 were the team. For the rugby, you'd have the team meetings and the team runouts. So I missed all that. Came and you'd have a double lesson of something in the afternoon, and we had a double lesson of English. In which case, I regaled you with all my success of going round Cheltenham. So I think everybody else in the lesson was absolutely delighted because we could watch a video for
we did
for half an hour. And
from your teacher's point of view, he of course was so surprised. I mean, I'd been at the racecourse, of course, and I sprinted back to have the afternoon lessons. And to my amazement, having seen Tom ride his first winner, which is such a golden moment, to find him sitting on the desk, I was astonished. And I said, "Tom, what are you doing here?" And he said, "But I've got English," which I really thought was. But
that goes back to. Discipline and standard. That was what was expected of me, was that, okay, this is our side of the bargain. We're going to not look after you, but we're going to tailor things to try and suit you. My side of the bargain was to, not to use as any excuses. My side of the bargain was to come back and work as hard as possible. So I think it was just a show of it wasn't something I had to do. I felt that it was important, and I'm not saying I might have turned up for another lesson.
And by this time, one or two of the other teachers were quite wise to Tom, so I think they had quite a good Friday afternoon as well. So after college, take us with you then. What happened immediately when you left?
So I left college, let's stay for speech day, and then so did my levels, speech day, and then I think on the Monday after speech day, I went down to the West Country, went to work at Martin Pipes. And I've never left. So that was that was what I did. All my mates were off on their gap years and things. I went straight into working for Martin Pipe, and I've always had that connection with the pipes down in the West Country. So that's what I did, and became an amateur jockey for the first season, and then a professional after that.
And your father, of course, had worked for Martin Pipe, as you now still work for David.
Yeah. So Martin Dad had a great association with Martin, and then I've taken over as stable jockey for David when he took over from his father.
Good. Does that mean that you always ride for that stable, or do you have other rides?
Not always. It means that I will ride the majority of their horses, so that if somebody sends a horse there, they can basically expect me to ride it. Obviously, some people might feel differently, or there are other horses that they have people that are working there as well, which they have to ride too. So he forms the majority of my rides and the basis of my rides, but I'm not. I don't have to. He doesn't have to use me on all of them, and I don't have to ride all the horses too. So it's not it's a gentleman's agreement rather than a contract. But yes, it's one that's worked for 15 years. So.
But I think
pretty successful.
It's probably worked because of your loyalty, which is perhaps not always seen in the racing
perhaps,
profession.
but again, it's loyalty that's worked both ways, and he's been very good to me, and it's an important part of life, isn't it? If people are good to you, you've got to be good to them.
That's right. And you have an agent to book your rides, is that right?
Yeah, I do have a man called Dave Roberts who books all my rides, and he's a fantastic agent. He looked after Tony McCoy, Richard Johnson, myself, and he looks after John Joe O'Neill, another OC. And so he's the top man of his profession. I'm very lucky to employ him.
I was very, very amused to see the other day that he has 57 jockeys on his books, and he said he likes that. It's a nice round number. So obviously the man is very, very level, which is important.
He's very level, and his work ethic is unbelievable.
I gather, And a sense of humour too.
Yeah, he's got his own sense of humour, but he's a brilliant man, and
right.
He is he's a pleasure to deal with. He really is. He sees things. He's in the line of work he does. He's an absolute genius.
Let's just spend a moment on the difficulties of the job, because we're going to move on to the other side of the coin. Obviously, there must be some privations in terms of diet, perhaps sleep. Is that tricky for you?
As you can probably see in those who know me best from college, was that I was never the biggest, so that dietary wise, I don't have to struggle too much with my weight. I'm pretty lucky, and I'm pretty disciplined with it as well. So the weight has never really been an issue. The hardest thing I find with riding, obviously you have the injuries, but that's part and parcel of any sport. You're going to get injured, and as soon as you get injured, you just got to find a way of getting better. So that's part and parcel of it. The hardest thing I find is probably a lot down to myself is the traveling and the hours I spend in the car. So that is hard. It's not just hard for myself; it's hard for the family as well. And it's not that from a personal life point of view, that is the hardest thing, because it's not just it's yourself, it's your family as well. And when you're, for instance, yesterday I left home at 4:30 and I didn't get back till 11 o'clock at night. So that when my partner is at home with a 2-week-old baby, it takes a certain type of person that is not a problem to, and it's not for everyone.
Yeah, but you talk about the discipline. I mean, I think even from the first time I first had dealings with you, and certainly as your tutor, your discipline was very, very evident. I remember one time going up to you rather gently and saying, "Tom, I don't think you've had lunch for at least 2.5 terms. You've not been to lunch. And you just looked at me very gently and said, that's right, he said, but I am going to be a jockey. And that was it. That was no problem.
Yeah, it wasn't a case of not eating, it was just being selective with it.
Yes, it's a fact, yes, which you have to be. It's,
Yes,
that's right. I think that's important. So, is there any one thing you could say, or just a couple of things that really drive you still after quite a few years in this profession?
I like to think I'm a very driven person anyway. But yes, there's lots of things that I haven't achieved as a jockey. I've been very fortunate to ride a lot of good horses and for a lot of very nice people. But although I'm fully aware I'm coming towards the end of my career. I'm 38 now, and any time over 40 is probably on borrowed time. Any time really as a jockey, I suppose, you're on borrowed time because the majority of jockeys don't get to choose when to retire. You get a little tap on the shoulder by a doctor saying, yes, I'm afraid you're not healing. So if I was in a position lucky enough to choose when I could go, that would be a good thing. But no, there's so much more I want to achieve. I've never been in a position really to be champion jockey yet. I think I was third one season with 150 winners, which was fabulous. I'd like to do that. I'd like to win the Grand National. I'd like to win the Gold Cup. I'd like to win a champion hurdle. But most of all, I'd just like to keep on at the level I'm at, and so I'm a firm believer in life. You're given a hand of cards, and in my grandfather's hand of cards, he was given a Grand National winner and a Gold Cup winner and a King George winner. Those are the hands of cards he was dealt, and that's what he achieved. My father was given a hand of cards where it was to be champion jockey as many times. Be in a fortunate position to ride for Martin Pipe, who was the equivalent of being asked to go and drive for Enzo Ferrari, or being signed by Sir Alex Ferguson. The man was leagues ahead of anybody else, and if you rode for him, you would be champion jockey. So that was the card he had, and he didn't let anybody down. And I'd just like to continue that with the hand of cards I've been given with the likes of Thistlecrack, riding the amount of winners I have, and hopefully maybe Cloth Cap in the Grand National. That there are no excuses, there are no hard luck stories. That I completed the job and kept people happy. Good.
We'll come back to Cloth Cap in a minute, but you are at the moment the 9th most successful jump jockey of all time, and clearly that in itself will that want you to overtake 8th, 7th, 6th?
Yes, I would like. I'm just over 100 winners behind Davy Russell, who's out injured at the moment. So that would be nice. There is a number in my mind that I'd like to get past, which is 1,678, which was ridden by another Scudamore. So nice to get past that. But I've got another 300 just over 300 winners to go. Okay. So the rate I'm at, it all depends on the seasons. If at the moment I've ridden in this COVID era, I've ridden 57 winners so far this season. If I can get up near 70, that would be great. And next season, it'd be nice to try and ride 100 winners again. But I'm fully aware that it's a big number, and I'm very fortunate to have ridden as many as I had. But I would be lying if I said it wouldn't be nice to get past number 6.
So that's another ambition. Yes, quite. Yeah. I think that's really understandable. So the whole idea of the jockey's life, would you recommend it?
Oh yeah, I think it's. But again, it's the same in anything in life. If you have a passion for something and you're fortunate enough to be able to make a living out of that passion, it's maybe too strong a word, but it's your duty really to go and follow that. And I would never put anybody off wanting to be a jockey, but it's the same in, if I've got 2 daughters now aged 14 and 12, about to be 13, and they both love to be jockeys. But I had a conversation with my eldest one the other day. It's all very well saying you want to be a jockey. You've got to go out and do it. You've got to practice hard. You've got to ride your ponies, and you can't neglect your schoolwork because you're going to have one fall or things. It doesn't always work out that way. But if you have options, then you can do whatever you want to do. But if you have options, you can then also gives you the opportunity to go and chase your passions because you have something to fall back on. But again, same as any walk of life, you have to be prepared to work very, very hard and put a lot of practice and hours in. But when I was practicing on my ponies and riding horses and things growing up, it never felt like hard work. So that made it a lot easier.
So you were always happy with the hand of cards you were dealt.
Yeah.
I think that came over even as a lad. You were, and you did have that character about you. That's and that sort of determination, which you really need, which every jockey needs, I think. So, tricky question: is it just about success?
Success has an awful lot to do with it. That's a great question. Yeah. I mean, I'd be lying. You get greedy. If you'd said to me 10 years ago, what you'd like to do and achieve, they'd probably be not as achievable as they are now. So I might have just said, yes, I'd like to be champion jockey, or yes, but actually I was a long way away from it. Whereas now I've sort of seen it, got close to it. I know I can do it. I just need to be in a position to do it. So yeah, the success, it does get you, and you want to continue to succeed. And it does become. I'd be lying if I said you don't sit there thinking about you've got to continue to be as successful as you have, and that's a real driving force. So that's I would. Success plays a huge part of it. Once you've tasted it, you want to do it again and again and again, and you become obsessed by it.
So you need a really strong combination of mental and physical energy for that determination.
Yeah, you do, and you have to be prepared to put yourself and unfortunately in some cases those around you you have your goals, and you have to be extremely driven, but that's the same in any walk of life. I'm afraid there are no it's a cliche, but that you can't cut corners.
No. So let's move on to next week, which is really exciting. I think this is the first time, all being well, you will have ridden the favourite for the Grand National.
Yeah.
Can I ask how you prepare mentally for that?
I try and treat it as any other race, as boring as it sounds. In my mind, it's just another 4.25 mile chase, although there aren't many 4.25 mile chases over big fences. But I will go out there with the mentality of it's just another race, and I have to find the best way of getting from A to B in the quickest possible way. So, Dad gave me a great piece of advice when I first started riding: you ride the race, not the occasion. And if you feel that sort of 10-year-old boy inside you starting to get all excited, you just have to calm him down a little bit and say, and the professional head come on board. It's the same way as I love listening to the stories. Growing up, I loved my rugby and my cricket, and those sports. And I suppose it's like talking to a great hero of mine was a man called Neil Jenkins, who played for Wales, and he might not even been the best in his position, but he was the most reliable. He was a brilliant goal kicker, and he kicked. He won Lions tours basically single-handedly in South Africa in '97. And when they asked him about how he'd take the pressure, what was it like kicking in front of goal of 90,000 people that are screaming abuse at you? He said in his mind he was just back at Pontypridd on his own, practicing kicking. He could block everything out, and he was just back at home, him and his rugby ball in front of the post that he'd been doing since he was 8 years old. And I just love that, and that's how I approach a big race. That the positions. It sounds very romantic. I turned to the straight in the Gold Cup in front, looked like I was going to win it, and I was taken back to my childhood. This is what I remember distinctly thinking. This is what you've been practicing for. Go and express yourself. And he got beat. It sounds so romantic, but no. I hasten to add, no beat through any. I go back through any fault of my own. So we're beaten by a better horse in the day. But you do get that feeling from time to time, and that where it comes back to that instinct. But instinct is something that you've practiced subconsciously for years and years and years.
Right. So, but with Cloth Cap, you have a very good understanding. You've won 2 big races on the horse. It seems that you fit together.
Yeah, you always fit together when you win. So again, you try and play it down. It's a lovely feeling, and yes, there's part of you that wants to think, racehorses run faster for me than for anybody else. But the reality is that, on the right day is being on them at the right time at the right day. Lewis Hamilton, everyone can say anyone could drive a Mercedes and go and do it, but there's a reason you're put in that car. So it's the same as a jockey. Your job is to try and get on the best horses. And I was fortunate enough to get on Clothcack when he became available, and again, part of that, it's one thing getting on them. It's
back to the hand of cards again.
Yeah, you've got to deliver with them. So, I'm very lucky. That's how I've dealt with pressure all through my life, and whether it's a big race or a small race, I feel just as much pressure going out to ride in a selling hurdle, the lowest grade race around the lowest grade race course, because I'm fully aware that horse in training costs just as much as the best horse in training, and you have a responsibility to the owner, trainer, stable staff. Their livelihood depends on your performance, so you can't go out there thinking that actually it doesn't really matter doing that one compared to I'm only interested in the big races. No, that doesn't cut it. And that comes back to that again keeps your feet on the ground, and nothing quite keeps your mind focused as half a ton of horse flesh travelling at 30 mile an hour with the prospect of rolling all over you as well. So that tends to.
Clothcap doesn't know that he's favourite.
No, Clothcap doesn't know that he's favourite. No. So exactly, and it's the same way whether you're riding a fancied horse or an outsider. The joy of it, they don't know. It's just you at one with your beast, and you've got to try and.
And you have won over the national fences before.
I've won twice over the Grand National fences, so that doesn't hold any secrets. I know how to do it, and I've just got to do it in the right race.
Right. A couple more questions just to finish. Rachel Blackmore has taken the racing world by storm lately. What are your thoughts about her and what she represents?
She's just fabulous. I just love the way she goes about her business. She's very matter of fact, very quiet, lets her write, lets her deeds do the talking. In any walk of life, I feel a bit hypocritical now, sort of sat here saying this, having talked probably endlessly for the last half an hour. But there's so many people in life, and whatever walk of life you're in, that talk, and they can talk fabulously, but their deeds don't match up their talking. And there's other people, and the deeds are what count. And the way she goes out and does her business, I think she's an absolute inspiration. My daughters adore her because of what she stands for, what she's achieved, and she really is. She's a force of nature, and I couldn't speak highly enough of her as a rider or as a person. And there's nothing more I can add. I can only I've been very fortunate to ride with the elite of the national hunt world, and she's in that bracket.
I think that's really good, and that's really encouraging for all the girls. You mentioned your own two daughters, all the girls out there. It is one of the very few sports where men and women compete on equal terms, and obviously it's marvellous what she is doing, and she's just doing it, as you say. She doesn't draw attention to herself. It's the riding that does the talking. How would you feel if your daughters went to be jockeys?
Furious. Absolutely. They're far too intelligent and pretty to want to do it. I mean, it's just, I can see. So my grandmother, when I was growing up, my grandmother used to try and feed me up all the time to stop me from being a jockey. Having seen her, so my grandfather, he had to retire because he lost sight in one. He had his face smashed in. Then seen her beloved special boy Petey breaking legs and arms and getting smashed up, and then again her firstborn grandson, who was spoilt rotten by her. Every time he'd come and stay, what would you like to do? I want to be a jockey. Have another cake. Have some more chocolate. Have something else. So now I see it from the other side of the fence. I'm very much of the opinion of do as I say, not as I do. But look, the long and the short of it is I'm so grateful and privileged to have been given the opportunity and the life I've had so far being involved in the industry. And if my children want to do it, then I will give them the best support. Same as my father to me, my grandfather to my father. But all the things we've said before, it's not something to play at. it's something
No,
to do.
no.
So as long as they're willing to do that, and I see no reason why they wouldn't, then of course. But I think it's the same with any father-child relationship, that you give them the best support they can. But there are no excuses. You've got to make the most of the opportunities you're given.
So Tom, final question, which you might find tricky. If you hadn't been a jockey, could you ever have been anything else?
Well, looking around here, I wouldn't mind having been a janitor in here. Not a bad place to work.
Perhaps you should be a comedian.
Yeah, no. I mean, what would I have been? This is going to sound. I have genuinely no idea what I would be if I. And you know that full well, having known me since I was 13 years old, that I was driven, that I wanted to be a jockey. If I wasn't going to be a jockey, I'd be involved in racing, but I had options to do whatever I wanted to do, and that was the important thing. But I'd never thought about anything else, so I have I don't know, and it frightens me now to think I'm going to, as my grandmother, going back to what my grandmother said, she used to say to my father, "When are you going to get a proper job?" And so it frightens me to death, thinking when am I going to actually grow up and get a proper job, because I've been so fortunate to have had the career I've had. But keep putting it into the back of my mind at the moment.
I think you made
three or 4 or 5 years
a proper job
left in me yet, but
and a lot still to go.
Yeah,
for.
exactly. So I genuinely, I know it is an impossible question, because every waking hour I had, and dreaming as well, was only ever going to be one thing.
Brilliant. Tom, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Absolute
for
pleasure.
being so
it's lovely
open
to
and
be.
frank.
No, it's great. It's nice to be back, and it's nice to have. It's been so long since I've been here that it's lovely, and you really feel. I feel very proud to be an OC, which is something if you told me that when I was 14 years old, I might have said no chance. But no, I am, and it's a wonderful institution here, and I'm very proud and privileged to have been a student here, and it's always been part of me throughout my career. So thank you.
If you are interested in following up anything of this talk, then you might like to buy a very good book which has been out a couple of years. It's called Three of a Kind by Chris Cook, and various other people have had contributions to it. And it's a fascinating study of Tom's grandfather Michael, his father Peter, and Tom himself, and the way attitudes and approaches to racing have changed over the years, and yet the way that some things have remained very much the same. So Three of a Kind, I would recommend it as being very much worth a good read. So if the OCs would like to get further involved, I'm sure if they just get in touch with Sarah and Sebastian, they could be accommodated. But in the meantime, Tom, thank you very, very much. And needless to say, we wish you every possible success in the Grand National with Cloth Cap. Thank you, Tom.
Pleasure. Thank you.